Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're talking about one of the most confusing but important concepts in cybersecurity, symmetric versus asymmetric encryption. I'm going to give you real memory anchors, real-world examples, and cybersecurity context to help explain this confidently and to remember it. As a quick mental hook before we start, remember, symmetric sounds like same. Same key to lock and unlock. Asymmetric means not the same. Two different keys, right? One to unlock and one to unlock. So go ahead and lock that in your memory, and we'll build on it throughout this video. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we talk about encryption, we need to first understand why it exists, and this is the CIA triad connection. CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Encryption primarily serves the first two. C stands for confidentiality. When you log into your bank, encryption makes sure that if anyone intercepts your data in transit, all they see is gibberish, unintelligible ciphertext. Your plaintext data is scrambled using an algorithm and a key. The I stands for integrity. This proves that data wasn't changed while in transit. This is done through digital signatures, which use asymmetric encryption that creates a verifiable fingerprint of the data. Even if one bit changes, the signature breaks. Now this is where it gets tricky. The A for CIA traditionally stands for availability to make sure things are accessible whenever you need it. However, for encryption, the A takes on the form of authentication to make sure that it's confirming identity. Now here's a formula to burn into your memory, which we will go over more in the video. Plaintext plus an encryption algorithm plus a key equals ciphertext. To reverse it, ciphertext plus the right key equals plaintext back. Everything we discussed today is going to be a variation of this core concept. Let's move on to symmetric encryption. First, let's think about a house key. You use the same key to lock your front door and unlock it. That's exactly how symmetric encryption works. One secret key is used to both encrypt, lock the data, and again to decrypt, unlock the data. The word symmetric literally contains the word sim, which sounds like same. Same key, lock it. Now let's look at how the process flows for symmetric encryption. First, you start with the plaintext. We can say this is a password or a file. Then you feed it to an encryption algorithm, most common being AES, along with your secret key. What's produced is ciphertext, completely unreadable scrambled data. To reverse it, you need that same secret key. Keep in mind that the same secret key is used both for encryption and decryption. Now for the algorithms, which will be asked by interviewers and maybe on the Security Plus exam. First is AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard, which is the gold standard for encryption. It uses 128, 192, or 256-bit keys. When somebody says military-grade encryption, they usually mean AES 256. Next is DES, the Data Encryption Standard, which is now obsolete, as it can be brute forced within hours with modern hardware. 3DES tried to fix DES by running the algorithm 3 times, but as of 2023, it is now deprecated and it should not be used at all still. SHA-220 is a stream cipher that is usually used on mobile and embedded devices. A main thing to remember is the big advantage of symmetric encryption is speed. It's extremely fast and efficient, which is why it's used for bulk data encryption. However, it has a weakness that both parties need to securely share that secret key, and that key exchange problem is exactly what asymmetric encryption was invented to solve. To remember asymmetric encryption, imagine a padlock that anyone can click shut, but only you have the key to open it. You mass produce these open padlocks and hand them out to everyone. This is your public key. Anyone who wants to send you a secret message puts it in a box and clicks your padlock shut and sends it to you. Now only you can open it with your private key. That private key never leaves your possession, ever. This is the core concept. Asymmetric encryption uses a mathematically linked key pair. What one key encrypts, only the other key can decrypt. You can freely share your public key, but you guard your private key with your life. Let's see how this works. You have a plaintext, which can be your message like a password or file again. The sender takes your public key and encrypts the message, and sends you back ciphertext. Only you or the recipient can decrypt it with your private key. This is so that even if someone intercepts the ciphertext and has the public key, they can't reverse it without the private key. And again, you can share the public key with anybody, but the private key should be never shared and should always be kept secret. For algorithms, RSA is the most deployed asymmetric algorithm in the world. When you visit any HTTPS website, RSA is likely involved in the initial key exchange. Key sizes of 2048 or 4096 bits are standard. ECC is the elliptic curve cryptography. A 256-bit ACC key provides roughly the same security as a 3072-bit RSA key, with dramatically faster computation. Because of its speed and security, ECC is gaining more public ground, and it is also favored by TLS 1.3. For the Diffie-Hellman, it's a little bit special. It's not an encryption per se, as it's more of a key exchange protocol. It lets two parties establish a shared secret over an insecure channel without ever actually transmitting that secret. It's the mechanism behind perfect forward secrecy that you'll hear about and learn about in TLS. A key thing to remember is that asymmetric encryption is mathematically complex and slow. Now that we've learned what they both are, let's compare them side by side. For symmetric encryption, remember that it uses one shared secret key. Both sides must have it. Its speed is extremely fast, and for its key size, don't compare these directly. A 256-bit AES key and a 2048-bit RSA key provide roughly equivalent security because the underlying mathematics is completely different. For use cases, Symmetric excels at bulk data encryption, encrypting the actual data. Its weakness, however, is its key distribution. How do you securely share a secret key with someone you've never met? We've talked about algorithms again, so we'll skip those for now. Just remember that the real-world examples are HTTPS data transfer, disk encryption, and VPN tunnel data. Now let's compare this to asymmetric encryption. Asymmetric encryption uses a key pair. It uses a public key that you share freely and a private key that you never share. Its speed is pretty slow and its key size is pretty large. However, its use cases here excel, as asymmetric handles key exchange, authentication, and digital signatures. Asymmetric also excels in its strength, as it eliminates the problem from symmetric keys entirely. Its real-world uses include HTTPS handshakes, SSH logins, email signings, and certificates. And now the key takeaway for this is that Symmetric uses one key and it's fast. It's great for data. Asymmetric uses two keys and is slower. Great for key exchange and authentication. HTTPS, as we're going to learn soon, uses both. Asymmetric to negotiate a session key, and Symmetric to encrypt the actual traffic. Now that we have a good idea of what they each do separately and their strengths and weaknesses, let's look at how they could be used in a hybrid role. This slide is the one that's going to make everything click and come together. Plus, it's a huge interview question to be asked: how does HTTPS work? And here's the answer you want to be able to give. HTTPS uses hybrid encryption. It combines both asymmetric and symmetric encryption, leveraging the strengths of each. Let's observe the steps for this. Step 1 is the server sends a public key. When you connect to a bank website, the server sends its public key to your browser packaged inside a digital certificate. Step 2, the browser creates a session key. Your browser generates a random session key, which is a temporary symmetric AES key that will be used only for that session. This key is created fresh for every single connection. The third step is the session key is now going to be encrypted. Your browser encrypts that AES session key using the server's RSA or ECC public key and sends it over. Now the session key is protected. Nobody intercepting the traffic can read it without the server's private key. The fourth and final part is the symmetric data transfer. The server uses its private key to decrypt and recover the AES session key. Now both sides have the same session key and all the actual data. Your passwords, bank transactions, everything. It all flows encrypted with fast AES. Now, this is a genius design plan. Asymmetric encryption handles the hardest problem. It securely exchanges a key with a stranger over an untrusted network. Whereas symmetric encryption is incorporated to handle the heavy lifting of actually encrypting gigabytes of data quickly. The key thing to remember here is that hybrid uses the best of both worlds, just like Hannah Montana. Asymmetric solves the key distribution problem, and symmetric delivers the speed. Together, it is both secure and fast. And now for the ending, let's lock it all in. Here are some memory anchors for symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Let's start with symmetric. Remember that sim equals same. Symmetric encryption uses the same key to encrypt and to decrypt. Think of it as a house key. It simply locks and it unlocks. Asymmetric, asym equals two keys. Asymmetric uses a public and a private key pair. Remember this with the padlock analogy. Anyone can click your padlock shut with your public key, and only you can open it with your private key. Hybrid equals HTTPS. The real world uses both. Asymmetric solves the key exchange problem, and symmetric handles the data transfer. That's basically HTTPS in one sentence. For symmetric encryption algorithms, remember that AES is now the gold standard. For asymmetric encryption algorithms, RSA is most deployed, and ECC is the modern future, with TLS 1.3 strongly preferring ECC. Now, to reiterate the most important part again, symmetric encryption uses one shared key and it's fast, ideal for encrypting bulk data, whereas asymmetric uses a public-private key pair and is slower but solves the key distribution problem. It's used for key exchange, authentication, and digital signatures. In practice, systems like HTTPS combine both asymmetric for the handshake and symmetric for the session. If you can communicate this information naturally and confidently, you will surely stand out during your interviews and exams. And that basically wraps up the end of this video. As always, thank you for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see more lessons every week. Thank you and have a nice day.